Thank you for being here. And let's have some deep conversation about spirituality. So, right off the bat, what is spirituality?
That's a very interesting question. So we all seem to have this built-in gene, this built-in urge that we want to merge with the divine. It's something that is part of our makeup. It's because we have a soul, because we have a spirit. And so we want to expand. Everybody has that. Men have found, or humans have found, how they can control other humans because of that. And so came religion. And religion, basically, everybody's being told in whatever religion that they are, that their God is the best God, and that they have to follow their God, and that they have to shun or even
Attack.
other people who have another God.
So, you're saying that there's a difference between religion and spirituality.
Absolutely. And I'm just coming to that. And so in religion, you connect with God through the exterior, like in Christianity, through the Bible, in Catholicism, through the priest, through the receiving the Eucharist. But in spirituality, you connect with the divine internally. You have a direct communication with the divine. So you don't need somebody else's telling you what to do. Once you connect with the divine internally, you have the connection. And also because of that, you're free. You're not in the matrix because your information comes directly. And so you know what to do automatically from that point of view if you have a good connection.
Oh,
There's
it sounds lovely. I have two questions at this stage. What is the divine? And this term you used, matrix, how would you define that?
all right, the divine is like I know, but there's a maker. There's something greater than you. And it's important when you're into spirituality to believe in something greater than you, that you love something more than yourself. And for me, the divine is the everything.
Mm.
So when you look at who we are, that we are humans, spiritual beings, because we do have a soul, we do have a higher self, we do have a spirit. When you look at that, we're in the lowest possible dimension, 1, 2, and 3, depth, width, and height. There is this cube in which we exist, 3D. There's no lower dimension than 3D. And then the fourth
What about
dimension,
bacteria that you can see under a microscope?
yeah, but they're still in 3D.
Hmm.
You still see them under the microscope. The microscope has depth, width, and height. The bacteria has depth, width, and height.
Have you heard this phrase? It's from Tao that if the Tao cannot be explained and all atoms are futile. And Tao is pretty much everything and relationship with between everything with everything. And this explanation is futile.
Yeah, it goes there because once you're outside of time, which is the fourth dimension, once you go into fifth, sixth, seventh, whatever dimension, it's a vibrational level and it's not in time. And so the divine is the highest vibration there is.
There are no, it's all whole. There is no separation. But that
Yes, it's all
separation
one.
allows us to experience ourselves.
Yes. So when we, as humans, when we come into this reality, we cross the barrier of time space. And because of that, now we're in right, wrong, black, white. We're
Hmm.
in separation. We are in duality because we have a self I and we have an ego I. And it's the differentiation between the self I and the ego I that defines who you are.
But if there wouldn't be bad, how would I know that it's good? If there isn't a rain from time to time, how can I enjoy the rainbow?
You also need the sun to have a rainbow. You need to have the sun and the rain to have a rainbow. Your experience. We are in a free will universe. We are the divine does not intervene with our free will. And so we can do whatever we want. And now we're coming back, we'll shift into the whole concept of the matrix, which is this whole setup between humans. And right now, the law or the strongest muscle is the one that's on top. And look at development of things. 500 years ago, the printing press came out. All of a sudden, in the 80s, the personal computer came out. And then you have a smartphone, and there's this development. And likewise, as humans, we went through a certain development. And unfortunately, somewhere in the Industrial Revolution, we were made to become, everyone was given a watch so they could be on time. And that's when you separated the man from the woman, and the man goes to work and the woman stays at home. That's a relatively new concept. And so now when you go to school, school is still the very same thing it was 150 years ago. You still sit on a bench and you learn things. You don't learn how to learn, you just learn stuff. And you learn stuff that is good. You are being basically trained to be a worker bee. We all seem to be a cog in the gross national product. And you go to work and you make money, and you need that money so that you can buy things. And the things that you buy enrich the ones that are on top of the matrix. And that's the matrix, this whole concept that unless you are part of society in that regard, you're an outsider. And when you're in spirituality, and okay, so part of the matrix also is the concept of external validation. When you are a good soldier, you receive a medal. When you worked hard all your life and you retire, you receive a certificate of appreciation. When you step outside the norm, for instance, with the Amish, when you don't follow their social construct, they will shun you, they will throw you out of their society. And so there's tremendous amount of peer pressure, and you receiving external validation when you're following the concept that are given to you through peer pressure. But when you have an internal connection to God and you become self-validating, you create what you need for your self-esteem, your self-worth, your self-respect, your self-confidence, and your self-love. You're not dependent upon the external, and so you're not controllable anymore. They cannot control you because you have everything. See, when you're a Catholic, and now it's somewhat more liberal, but just like 100 years ago, and you wanted a divorce, they wouldn't grant you a divorce. And if you separated from your wife or from your husband anyway, then you'd be excommunicated. And now you can go into a big city and be anonymous. But when you lived in a small village and the rest of the village wouldn't talk to you anymore, or you'd go to a store and they'd ignore you and you couldn't buy anything, then you were dependent upon following what your peers wanted you to do. Otherwise, you would perish. And so we're in a time where that concept, because you can go into big city. But look at it in China now with their new social control, and everybody has, like, they have smartphones like we have here as well. But also there's all these video cameras and there's facial recognition. And if you do something that the society doesn't want you to do, then you get bad points in your social credits.
Really?
And if your social credits go over a certain limit, then your smartphone, the capacity in your smartphone to pay for things is being turned off. And then you can't buy things anymore.
So this matrix, it seems is very similar in nature to religion because initially it was tool that we could use to grow, but nothing lasts forever, right? Everything is
No.
changing, and now society is using us. Now religion is using us, and the matrix that it seems we created to perceive the humankind. Because without any rules in the Wild West, it would be hard to survive. So it seems that the thing that we have been once using is now using us, like the duality of life, right?
Yes, that's correct. The thing that we once used is using us to keep us in control. And we're in some very precarious times. The old structures are falling apart, and it creates a lot of chaos. And it is a race almost between is the ruling class going to be able to institute enough control measures so that they can keep us in control? Or is the world becoming self-sufficient because the vibration currently is rising? And so there's a tendency to realize that this whole matrix is self-defeating and that spirituality is the key out of this morass. And so
Do you think we can also
there's
be
race
used by
going on.
spirituality?
I beg your pardon?
Do you think we can also be used by spirituality? For example, I was thinking,
No, that's the whole idea, because there's no look. Right now, we're in a society which is under the rule of law.
I'm going to give you some background. First of all, I think completely nothing is changing. The energy is always the same. The graphics itself changes slightly to confuse you. It's something different. And I'm going to give you an analogy. Let's say there is a dancer that dances beautifully and everyone is impressed. But out of sudden, she starts to second guess her moves. She overanalyzes, she overthinks. She starts to think about dancing instead of dancing, and she falls. The thing is, the same thing is with life. Either you think about life or you live. So spirituality, it seems it is used as a coping mechanism, and I see it all the time. That people, instead of facing their challenges in life, seeing the demons underneath their bed, face the music, they use spirituality as a coping mechanism. So I was thinking to myself, because nothing lasts forever, if Jesus would be reborn in these times, would he be spiritual teacher or would he be someone else? But what is your perspective on this?
I do think that the energies out there, that the vibration, yes, the sum total of all energy is always the same, but that's physics. I do think that currently the vibration, the frequency at which we vibrate is rising. That which is being fed to us from the cosmos, that the vibration is increasing. And because when you vibrate at a higher level, you function differently. And I do think that there is an opening for the world, for people in this world, for it to be more easy to become spiritual. Look, several centuries ago, if you were an adept, you wanted to grow, and we're going to go to India, because India is the place where the chakras got first brought into manifestation. You'd have to learn about the 7 chakras. You'd have to do 7 lifetimes. 1 lifetime root chakra, 1 lifetime sacral chakra, etc. Now you can learn everything in 1 easy lifetime. You can deal with, so there is a speeding up of things.
On the other hand, back in the day, people were afraid of yogi because they knew what they were after, and they were after super skills. Now yoga become mainstream. just another fitness class. And to a degree, yes, you can work on your chakra in a day or a week, but what would it give? Absolutely nothing.
I disagree with you because I have managed to come out of the morass of being totally in shame, totally non-functioning, poor self-image, was a total loser. I did not manage to function. I was unhappy. I was sad. I was angry up the wazoo, to a person that is now happy, in bliss, balanced, functioning well, successful, and it was due to my spirituality.
What were you ashamed of?
I was ashamed of who I was because when I was 2 years old, I had polio. And
Mm.
so I was paralyzed for 2 years. Fortunately, I recuperated out of that. But when I then finally was able to go back and play with the other kids, I was like 3, 4 years behind in physical development. So they all laughed at me. They all humiliated me. If somebody wanted to say, oh, I'm stronger than him, they could come up to me and just beat me up because I didn't have the physical capacity to defend myself. I didn't have the strength. I didn't have the coordination. So they would all laugh. And I was the laughing joke of the neighborhood. And I felt humiliated and I felt totally inadequate. I felt defective, which are two definitions of being in shame: not good enough, inadequate, defective. And it stayed with me. I wasn't able to get out of it. So I did many things along the way. For instance, my brain wasn't working well because that imprint of shame when I was young. So I did hyperbaric oxygen, and that helped my brain. I wasn't able to talk because I had speech aphasia between my brain and my mouth. They wasn't coordinated. So I went to Toastmasters and I learned how to become a speaker and not to be, if I made a mistake in my speaking, instead of, oh my God, and shrink and retreat, now I can make a joke about it. Man, my brain isn't working today. Maybe somebody can tell me what I wanted to say and laugh about it. And I'm free. I don't feel inferior anymore. I have a happy, fulfilled life with a great relationship, with good health, with adequate wealth, comfortable. And all these things I managed to get into because I learned about meditation. I learned about reality creation, how I create my own reality. I built my self-worth up, my valued self, and got more confidence, and finally managed to come out of my shell and do what I'm doing. If I had not gone into connecting with the divine, connecting with my soul, I would have never been there.
Trauma itself is an emotional response that was bigger than us in a point of life. So, as a coping mechanism, we put it in a black box, hide it deep, deep within where we cannot find it, but somehow it affects our day-to-day life. It's like carrying invisible backpack loaded with hundreds of pounds. When you're finally able to let go of that, it's experiencing reality
Correct.
through completely different lenses.
One step at a time.
Mm.
Shift this, shift that other thing, learn about this. Don't be affected by that, whatever other people think. So what if they think bad about me? So what? Everybody that's out there that is a public persona, there will always be the haters and the detractors.
Mhm.
You cannot please everybody. And if you try to please everybody, you give your power away to everybody. And that's not the idea. You have your
Uh,
personal power. You learn about your personal power and you use it. So
if you please everyone, there is one person that you do not please, and that's yourself. From traditional Chinese medicine, this tendency to worry about others or thinking about you is an imbalance of the spleen that basically says that your self-esteem is low. You do not feel like you're enough for that situation. Funny how that single thing can implement all layers of our life, especially the more advanced you are, the more energy you have, the bigger vibration you have, the faster it runs after you. Everything is changing. I look outside the window. One day it's raining, one day it's sunny. So, in a way, you cannot always have high vibration because then life is going to test you. And it's going to test you exactly at those points where your energy is low to see if you truly learned the lesson. You let go. You need to have no emotional response to what's going on, because if you have emotional response, you're investing energy in that pattern and it grows stronger and stronger, and eventually it's going to consume you.
If the emotion is a downward emotion, if it's anger, but if it's joy, if it's love, then why not? Because that will enhance the bliss, that will create greater and greater unfoldments. And so, yes, but look, we're in a society where we think about the straight line. They want to keep inflation low, continuous the same. They want to make certain that the gross national product grows by 2% a year consistently. And if it's not enough, if it's too low, then they create circumstances to favor that it can go back. If it's too much, they create other circumstances to bring it back down. And so we think in terms of a straight line, but growth is not a straight line. Growth is a curve. And so the idea, yes, you are going to have highs and lows. You are going to sunshine and rain. But the idea is that your low in the future is higher than your high in the past. So it's a curve, but that gently overall rises, that you are increasing your vibration. And yes, you are going to have lows, and you are going to find life is life. There's things that come at you, and that's our feedback. Life is our feedback of where we are. Because if you're in a state of mind of shame, then your life will feed you back things that will enhance your shame. But when you're in a state of love and joy and happiness and bliss, then your life will attract and feed back to you things that are corresponding to what you feel,
The,
or I would say to your state of mind, because we're more complex than just what we feel.
the problem is, some of those things we are unaware, and there are other things like ancestor trauma that have been passed to us by generation. And it's those experiences that our ancestors weren't able to process through. They use coping mechanisms to deal with life. And there are so many, and in a degree, since all of us have ancestors, all of us struggle with it. Different religion define it differently. They call it karma, they call it original sin. And the latest religion called science called it epigenetics, expression of the genes. The problem is not what the problem is not with what you know. The problem is with what you don't know. So the question my would be to you how to be aware of that.
All right. So when it doesn't even matter whether spirituality does come in or not, but when you're on a path of self discovery, when you are, because we are here to grow, we are here to have experiences, we are here to add to our consciousness. And many people are not there. Most of our society is here just to survive. But once they figured out their survival, then there's got to be more, because there's this built-in mechanism to want to be more. And so when you're on that path, then what you need to do is you first need to become aware of your conscious mind. You need to track your thoughts. You need to track how you feel. You need to look at your life, how it's unfolding, and you need to look for patterns, because something that happens once is no big deal. But if it happens again and again, like I meet this woman and we have this extraordinary connection, and 2 weeks later we start to fight, and in 6 weeks we're separated, and then I find another woman, and the first 2 weeks is phenomenal, and then we start to argue in 6 weeks later. And so there's people who go through patterns. And so you look at your patterns and you first consciously find out what is going on with these patterns. Why are these patterns here? What do I believe? What is my attitude? What are my thoughts and feelings that are around this? What choices and decisions do I make? And so first you befriend your conscious mind. Then you
Tame the
learn,
wolf.
and then you learn how to befriend your subconscious mind. And there's techniques. You can do mindfulness. You can slow down your brain patterns through applied focus on the closed eyes, and your brain waves go from beta into alpha. And when you're in alpha, you're connecting into your subconscious mind, and you can now look at patterns in your subconscious mind.
Yeah,
Finally, once you befriend your subconscious mind, where the habits, the patterns, the consistency of your life, you make the changes that are necessary. Now your subconscious is on your side. It's not on the matrix side. It's on your side. So now the next step is that you go and learn about your unconscious mind, where all these consensus beliefs are being held. If you are born and they just put you into the wilderness like Mowgli, who was raised by animals and no other human patterning. If you were raised that way, you have no idea where you would go. The reason we don't walk through walls is because when we were in the crib, a little baby, and mother would come into the room, she'd come through this hole that was over there in the room, which later on you learned was a door. And if your mother would have just appeared to you coming through a wall, then you'd be able to walk through walls. A lot of your belief system is given to you in a time when you're not even capable
conscious.
of expressing yourself, pre-verbal.
I have similar opinion on this. In fact, I believe that the mere act of observation make things dull. The way that my PC is standing on is a desk, because so many people believe it is a desk. If they would stop believing, it would dissolve into energy again. And that leads
Yes,
me to my belief about beliefs, that there are glorified restrictions, only one way to look at reality. And in a way, belief can be good, belief can be bad. It's what's serving you, what you can use as a tool. Like you would go to a different location using signposts, and those signposts are your beliefs. And you eventually reach that location, you reach higher level of growth. But if you want to go even further beyond, you need to let go of the old beliefs to make room for the new beliefs. And eventually, you need to let go of all beliefs, because
that's
through an
right.
empty head can be felt.
That's exactly right. And so I learned how to change my beliefs. You can actually go to you can imagine yourself, and you can imagine, quote unquote, a book of your beliefs. And you open up the book and you go through and you find that belief that doesn't serve you anymore. And so you rip out the page and then you move the pages over, and there's blank pages in the back, and you write the new belief that you personally want to adhere to,
Hmm.
because your beliefs are tools, and some serve you and some don't. And those that don't serve you, you let go and you create your own.
Like you have a garden, you weed the weeds out to make sure that the plants can grow. I assume you do it in alpha state of mind at least.
Yes. And so you can weed out the beliefs that don't serve you and plant new seeds of new beliefs that you want. Very simply, for those who believe that the money game is rigged and that they'll never make any money in life, they can insert the belief that the money game is rigged and that it's rigged in their favor.
Yeah, like that. What I observed
And
and found that you could put three different categories on people. And in fact, just putting a category on people makes you further away from the truth. But there are those that operate on the logic, mostly in survival of the body, the species, and the ego. Then there are people that operate from the perspective of emotions. And there are those that operate from energy perspective, which is actually a sum of emotion and logic, but I would still always start with the logic and build it gradually, like brick by brick, to build a beautiful castle for the soul to live in. And I'm wondering, what's your approach? How you do it? The
oh
only way to.
no, I believe I work on many different levels. We are complex being. I work on the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. These are four. We have four bodies, and I work with this conscious, subconscious, and your unconscious mind. I work with belief, attitude, thought, feeling, choices, and decision. I work with imagination, desire, and expectancy. I work with goodness, beauty, and truth. I work with the unfamiliar senses, the familiar senses, the hearing, the seeing, the touch, the taste, and I'm missing one. The unfamiliar senses, light, life, voice, movement, warmth, substance. I receive my information from in time and from outside of time. Logic is in time, but logic is only a small little
Hogwarts.
substance of our existence. You need to look at everything that is available.
Mm.
It's not, oh, religion is good and science is bad. No, religion and science are good. Spirituality is even better than religion.
Mm.
But I go choose and pick
Mm.
what
Serves
serves
you.
me, what I need, what I want, what makes, and my underlying feedback is that I have love, I have bliss, I have joy, I have happiness, I have fun, and I have good health, I have acceptable wealth, I live well, I have whatever I want whenever I want it. So as long as I'm in that state, I know that things are going well.
So it's
Oh, and one more thing. I befriended my ego. So my ego is
befriended
not
the ego.
interfering with me anymore.
Mm. That's interesting. How did you do it? And what do you mean by that?
All right.
Maybe let's start with a different question. What is the ego? To give you some background, how I define ego is this entity that pretends to be us, but it's not us. It is like this master slave that is using us to grow while we take backseat on this journey called life.
It's close to my definition. So when you come from the oneness and you come into this reality and you have duality, you need duality because you need to have reflection. In the oneness, you just exist. But in this reality, you need to have some sort of a feedback
Friction.
mechanism. And so you are born with a self I and an ego I. Now, the ego I comes in two different forms. It comes in the positive and it comes in the negative. everything the self I is in the core. The ego I is all around you. So everything that you perceive or everything that you send into your world goes through the ego I. The self I makes the decisions, it sends it out. The ego I, which is basically a gopher, it goes for things, it's a servant. The ego I then goes into the world with it, into the energetic world, gives it to the energetic world, brings it back to you. When you put out a thought or put out a command or a desire, it comes from you, it goes through the ego I, translates it into the world gets it, brings it back to the ego I, and the ego I brings it to you. That's when the ego functions well.
It seems
When
like
the
it's an
ego,
it seems like it's built like an onion, built with layers
it is
that
a layer.
guard
Yes,
the true essence of who we are.
yes. When the ego is supposed to just do that. However, when we're little, when don't understand that we have power, when we're overwhelmed, we tell the ego, no, you decide. I can't deal with this. You do this.
Mm,
And the ego is not equipped to do that. I'm going to a 6-year-old and I say, you're now the president of the United States. The 6-year-old is going to be overwhelmed. He
Pancake every
doesn't have,
day.
yeah. So if you demand of someone something that is beyond their capacity, they're
Mm,
going to feel inadequate,
mm,
not good enough, defective. They're going to be in shame. So we, early in life, put our egos into shame.
mm,
And when the ego is in shame, then now it dislikes you. It wants to kill you. It
mm,
hates you. So it's going to say, when everything is fine, it's going to tell you, it's going to lie to you.
mm,
And since everything that comes into back to you goes through the ego, it can mimic your soul, it can mimic your higher self. It
mm.
can tell you things, oh, I'm God, and I'm telling you that you have to do this, and you're going to be blah, 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 blah. And it will lie to you.
So it fights you with every possible mean. So sooner or later, probably you fight back. And once you start that, everything in your life starts to fight you. The universe starts to fight you. How you
Yes,
can dissolve that?
there's a technique that I used. The ego is basically, in its negative form, ignorant, immature, naive, and weak. Now, these are not judgments. These are just matter of fact. And if you interact with something in the non-physical, I'm going back to my higher self, I bring up my higher self, I ask it a question and it sends me a reply. When the reply comes, I'm going to say, you're immature, ignorant, naive, and weak.
Hmm.
If it's the ego mimicking my higher self, it will shrink. If it's the higher self, it will not shrink. So now I know whether my response is I'm being lied to or not. If it's the ego, I shrink it, I lift it up, I hold it, and I give it to my higher self to heal. I've done this for months and months, and over time, my ego was healed, and now my ego is my friend and will bring to me what it is that it will not lie to me anymore. One of the best aspects to consider is whether you feel better than or worse than somebody else. But if you at all, oh, I'm better than them, you're an ego because we're all equal. We all have the same amount of worth. We all have a soul. We all have a higher self. We all are light. We're all made of the same substance that everything else in the universe is made of. We're all made out of light. In the physical, this light is so condensed that it quote unquote crystallizes into material, but it's still the same building blocks. It's all light. And so we're all the same. But you have to differentiate between your beingness and your doingness. Yes, you can be better at doing something than somebody else, but it doesn't make you better than somebody else. And unfortunately, our upbringing is shame based because when we're little and we're doing something, we're being told we are bad. No, you are a bad boy. Don't do this. And so we don't want to be bad. And so we obey. And so this whole setup that we're in shame to begin with, yes, it holds us in the matrix. So one of the things that I did also, I looked at my shame and I cleared my shame. I'm not going to do something bad, but if I do something bad by accident, I don't intend to, but life is life. I can miss a stop sign and actually run into another car and kill somebody. And I will have remorse, but I will not feel shame because I cleared my shame. I gave it back to my parents, who gave it back to my grandparents, to my great grandparents, and it went up the ladder where it came from because shame is something that is given to you, is not something that you naturally acquire.
Do you think that your shame was located somewhere in your body?
It was in my energy field, yes. Shame is not physical. Yes, sometimes you can feel anger and you can feel that in your solar plexus, but it was more an attitude that I held about being, yes, my head was hanging. The dog, that wolf that's at the bottom of the totem pole, that is the omega, there's the alpha on top, and his tail will be up. And the one that's at the bottom, the tail will be between their legs. And I don't know exactly physically where I held my shame, but it was in my energy field.
It's okay. I'm just asking some previous experiences. I'm gonna edit that. I was curious.
I have little red spots, which are called angiomas, which
Mm.
has to do with an imbalance between testosterone and estrogen that creates these little angiomas. So in the physical breakdown of testosterone, in men, testosterone tends to, when they get older, break down into estrogen. And that's why older men have man boobs and they put on weight. But if I take DIM, then that breakdown into estrogen is stopped. And so I have adequate amounts of testosterone. Even though I'm 77, I still get pretty turned on and have I have good energy, and I don't drink coffee. I don't do tea. I don't do any sugar pop drinks. I don't do any power drinks. Basically, all day long, I drink water, and I have all the energy I want. I
Tell
sleep
me,
well. I'm
tell me,
healthy.
tell me, as a spiritual expert, are there any other practices that you do daily?
I've been a monk several lifetimes, and so my whole life is a ritual. Now, recently, I traveled into my ninth and 10th chakras, which increased the amplitude of my healing capacity. In other words, when I work with somebody and a private client, and I heal with sending them love, I learned how my heart chakra can create a healing love stream, and I send it to them. Going into my ninth and 10th chakra really increased my capacity to transmit energy and to send light to others for them to feel better.
Sounds amazing. Is this your path? Is this the technique that you used for all your customers?
No, many maladies are there because people don't receive enough love. But there's other maladies that are there because they were traumatized. They're there because they had an unfortunate event. Like I see people who were in car accident and their rib cages are out of alignment. And if I'll align their rib cage, which I do with sending them a healing love stream into their ribs, then, but if they have a curse, then I use psychic surgery. I go into their psyche and I remove the curse and I transmute it into the light. Some of it has to do with a healing love stream. Some has to do with some people, they're lost. They, so for some, it's just teaching them and telling them certain rituals to do that will help them regain their personal power, certain rituals that they do to regain their self respect, self esteem, their valued self. Some is just if they have a broken chakra, they just sending love to that chakra will not fix the chakra. I go to their higher selves. I have their higher self give me a new chakra. I remove the broken chakra and I put a new chakra in, and it changes their lives. So there's all kinds of techniques I use in that, all kinds of modalities that I use in my healing. And yeah, I guess so. That's it. That's the response to your question.
And in the end, all flowers bloom in due time. You cannot force someone to bloom. If you do, that would make you a barbarian. That was
No, I do it very respectfully.
I'm
First of all, I don't do anything without first consulting with them.
I'm just saying that you mentioned that some people are lost.
Yes. So
Perfectly fine.
tell them, look, you're lost. Do you want to find yourself? And if they say no, then I say, okay, have a happy life. And if they say yes, then I say, maybe it would be good for you to not be the servant of your family. How about if you introduce some me time into your day? Yes, you are a wife and you have a husband that's out to work and you cook and you raise the children and things like that. But you can't do this 24/7. You also need to nurture yourself. I tell people you cannot give from an empty cup. So you need to put the law down. Look, from 5 to 6 or from 3 to 4, mommy is doing her own thing. You do yours. If there's an emergency, you can come. But if there's not, I do my thing and I do what is good for me. I'm not the servant 4 hours a day. I'm a servant only 23 hours a day. And that 1 hour is for me. And so that's just one example of how, when they're lost, they can find themselves, is to start somewhere, because you're the first one who needs to appreciate yourself. You're the first one. When you have love, yes, you receive love from the universe. And that's really nice. And you need to love more. You need to send out more love than you give, than you receive, because you also manufacture love in your system. But if it's all me, it's not going to work. So, but you do need to have some time where you can recharge your batteries, where you can do that which interests you, not the rest of the world. You need to appreciate you so that you can be whole. And when you're whole, when you're filled up, when your cup is full, now what flows over, you can give into your world.
Great message and great conversation. Where can people find you?
They can find me at danielthehealer.com.
Great stuff.
I do private sessions. I help people become whole, but I also do weekly free healings, and those I do them Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m. and Thursday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern time, the time that is New York, Miami, Washington, D.C., the East Coast of the United States, Eastern time, and they're free. And I do those on iHealYourPain.com.
The link is down below. Thank you for listening. and stay tuned for another episode of pure greatness and bliss.